Hello.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
We're in Dalit, correct?
We're in
Dalit, yes.
31.
Perek
431.
31?
Okay, got it. Yeah.
We're dealing with the sugya of the Isha Shunamit, where he promised her a child. This was a barren woman who performed the mitzvah of Achnosis Orchim for Elisha by building him a sort of a second story. And when Elisha would come by, he would stay by her. And he blessed her with a child. And then the child died. And the mother ran to Elisha for help. We're in the midst of this story.
Maybe start?
We're just
Hi.
Hello.
picking up where we left off last week. And Elisha had sent his Meshores Gechazi. We're on Melachim Beis, Perek Dalid, Pasuk Lamed Aleph. That Elisha sent his Meshores Gechazi to take a staff and use the staff to revive the child. Pasuk Lamed Aleph.
I'm sorry to interrupt right away. Why
Yeah.
did Elisha feel that Gehazi qualified to revive the child?
He's a shaliach of Elisha.
A shaliach, but that would have he felt that was enough?
Yeah, he's a shaliach. He's a Meshores of Elisha, and he thought that was enough.
Because it's serious business to revive someone. I mean, that's
Yeah. Yes, it is. But he was a big Talmid Chacham. He had vices, which we talked about.
right.
Torah, he was sexually immoral.
Right. And he didn't think that would disqualify him, or kind of.
But he was going to go through shlichus of Elisha. He was going to stand in Elisha's place.
Okay, thank you.
Now, there is a debate, which we alluded to a little bit last time we learned, whether the child was really dead or not. And the Radak brings this.
Mm-hmm.
In Masechta Nida, Daf Ayin Amud Beis, they asked, Shoalu, Ben HaShunamis, Ma'u Sheyitma. The child of the Shunamis, was the child metame other people as a mace? And the Gemara answered, mace metame, ve'eno metame chai. A dead person is metame, not a live person. And the Radak learns, this is before Elisha revived the child. And from the answer of the Gemara, that it was not metame, because a chai is not metame, that he was not really dead. He just appeared to be dead. And therefore he was not metame. However, Rashi there in the Gemara does not learn that way. Rashi learns that the question that the Gemara asked was, after Elisha revived him, was he considered alive or dead? Maybe he was still metame. He's a revived mace, but maybe he remains a mace. That was the Gemara. That was the question of the Gemara. But ain't a chanami that the child was dead before Elisha revived him. That's the whole nace of Elisha. So it's machlokes Rashi and the other Meforshim who understand the Gemara differently. People ask on the Radak, why is the Radak trying to minimize the nace that Elisha did? The pasuk clearly says that he was dead. Now, a mystical sefer called the Paneach Razah in Parshas Bolog, regarding the stick that Elisha sent with Gehazi, that Gehazi came across a dead dog, and he revived the dog with the stick. Therefore, the stick had accomplished its shlichus. That's why when Gehazi put the stick on the child, it didn't revive the child. It sort of had used up its power. That's why the pasuk says in Lamed Aleph, "Gehazi avar lifneihem, vayasem et hamishenat al pnei anar." He put the stick on the face of the child. Ve'ein kol ve'ein koshev, and there's no sound. Vayashav likrato vayagid lo lemor lo hekitz anar. He came back to Elisha to say, the child didn't wake up, and they're medayik that the child didn't wake up, but the kelev, the dog, did wake up. To prove this story in the Medrash in Parshas Bolog. So now Elisha has to take over. Pasuk Lamed Beis. Again, for everybody, we're in Melachim Beis, Perek Dalid, Pasuk Lamed Beis. So now Gehazi has failed. So Vayavo Elisha habaisa. Elisha comes to the house, Vinei anar meis, mushkav al mitaso. And he finds the child dead, lying on the bed. Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Vayavo vayizgor hadelet be'ad shneim. So he closed the door that they should be alone. Vayispalel el Hashem. He thought the tefillah would be more perfect if he was by himself. He didn't want people to see. We said last time that a nace, there's like a tznius involved in a nace, that it should be hidden. By all the other nisim that we've described Elisha doing, where he made the oil flow by Eshes Ovadia, or later on today, maybe we're going to see there's going to be a poisonous dish that he's going to make edible, and he caused the water to become sweetened. There we don't see him davening. There was no need for tefillah. He just, through the koch as a Navi, and he was successful. Here, when it comes to revive the dead child of the Ben Hashunamis, he needed tefillah. So the answer, reviving the dead, is a maftech that only Hashem has. It only comes from Hashem. And a shaliach cannot do it. And that's why he needs tefillah. Lamed Daled. Vayal vayishkav al hayeled. So he lies down on the child. Vayasem piv al piv, mouth to mouth resuscitation. Ve'einav el einav, eye to eye, kapav al kapav, palm against palm. Vayigar alav vayacham b'sar hayeled. Vayigar is like a sneeze. You see? He with his body, he warmed up the child. Vayigar means he stretched himself. And by virtue of flesh to flesh, he warmed the child's body temperature. Again, we've always seen that the Nisim, there's an attempt to do it somehow derech hateva. And we do know that we restore people who've had cardiac arrest through breathing in their mouth and warming them. And even a nace is always attempted by Hashem, does not like, we're going to see later on today in the next parak, the same thing, that there's always an attempt to do things with nature, because Hashem does not like to change the natural course of things if he can avoid it. Pasuk Lamed, Vayoshav, Vayelech babayis achasena v'achasena. After he lies on the child, he gets off the bed, davens more, and walks back and forth to have more kavanah. It says in Tehillim, Kuf Aleph, Esalech b'sam levavi b'kerev beisi. I will pace in my house. David HaMelech describes focusing and concentrating for his tefillah. Back to the pasuk, Vayal vayigar alav, and again he stretched his body on the body of the child. Vayizorer hanar ad sheva pamim. Here the child sneezes 7 times. Vayifkach hanar es einav, and the child opens his eyes. The Gemara in Tainis, Daf Beis Amud Aleph. Am Rav Yechon shloisha maftechas b'yodeh shel Kadosh Baruch Hu shelo nimsru b'yad shaliach. There are 3 keys that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu has. It's not given to any shaliach. What are those? Maftech shel geshamim, rain. Maftech shel chayat, childbirth. Umaftech shel tchias hamesim. How do we know this? For Geshem, it says in Dvarim Kafches, Yiftach Hashem lecha es otzaro atov, es hashamayim laseis mitar tzecha b'ito. Hashem opens up his heavenly storehouse to bring rain. By Rachel, it says, Vayiskor Elokim es Rachel, Vayishma Elea Elokim, Vayiftach es Rachma. Again, mafteach, a key, an opening. The word yiftach Hashem lecha by the Shamayim. Vayiftach Hashem, he opens the womb. And in Yechezkel, in the famous Haftorah of the dry bones, that we read Shabbos Chol Hamoed Pesach, V'idatem ki ani Hashem b'fischi es kivrosechem, in my opening up your graves, mafteach. And then the Gemara concludes, B'marova omri af maftech shel parnasa. Hashem gives parnasa directly from him. Like it says in Ashrei posech es yadecha umazbir lecho chai ratzon, the same language of poseach. So Rabbi Yochanan asks, my time lekachashav lahoi, how come the Gemara started up with 3? So Amar lecha the geshami mainu parnasa, that the concept of rain is parnasa. So that's why they always give the psicha for Tfilas Geshem. It's a big school for parnasa, because it's one and the same, basically, is what the Gemara says. So no shaliach, no navi, it's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly.
Except for Eliyahu Navi, right? He did the same thing.
To Elion Elisha, but remember, they had to use tefillah. In all the other nisim that they did them directly, but they needed tefillah because it's got to go to the tefillah has to go to Hashem. Others learn pshat that when tzaddikim daven and they're mechayim mesim, or they bring rain, it's not considered that the mafteach was given to them. They're just asking Hashem, and Hashem follows the rotzon of the tzaddik or the novi. And all of these actions are done by Kodesh Baruch Hu himself. And the same thing, like Bernie just said about Elion Elisha, they say that it's the tefillah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself was Machai the Mace. And so will be in the future, Mirz Hashem. Lamed Vav Vayikra Gechazi. So I have my colleague, I have a few colleagues here, George Fishman, a very prominent nephrologist, and we have Bernie, an ophthalmologist. We have Harold, who's dental medicine. We know that childbirth is something, there's no artificial, we don't have artificial wombs. We can keep an embryo, for 3 or 4 or 5 days before it has to be implanted into the uterus. And then children are born prematurely and they can be put into incubators. But there is, in 2024, and probably for the next how many 100 years, we're probably not going to see it. The Chazals tell us some things are in the hands of Hashem. The same thing, Tchias HaMesim, basically creating life or recreating life. Also, we see we're very, very far away, as much as we have a terrific science, they're very far away from creating a cell that functions on its own with all the enzymes, etc. So these are things that we see even in the scientific world that seems to bear fruit regarding. Now we've come close, regarding weather. I mean, our meteorologists are very good, but they still cannot predict with absolute certainty where rain is going to fall, when rain is going to fall. We see the words of Chazal really coming true. Pasuk Lamed Zayin. Vatavo vatipol raglav. I'm sorry, Lamed Vav. Vayikral Gechazi vayomer kra el Shunamit hazo. So Elisha tells Gechazi to call the mother. Vayikra batavo ela vayomer siivnech. And Elisha says, take your child. You notice there's not a lot of discussion, but there's a lot of tznius. Yes, she invites Elisha, but there's not a lot of discussion between them. The Meforshim point out there's not a lot of back and forth. She provides and he does what he's supposed to do, but you see a lot of tznius going on in these dialogues. The mother falls to the feet of Elisha, Vatishtachu arza. She saw the nace of Tchias HaMesim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did. Vatisa et b'nav tetzei. That's, by the way, this is how the Haftorah ends. The parak continues, Lamed Ches. Velisha shava Gilgola v'hara'av ma'aretz. Elisha goes back to the Shomron, and there's a famine. This is years later. Chazal understand this isn't right after the mice of the Den HaShunamis, but we are recounting the 9th and 10th nace. Remember, Eliyahu had done 8 nisim, and we're going through 16 nisim that Elisha performed, one after another, because he requested double ruach. So it was manifested through double nisim. So there's a big famine. Uvnei Nevi'im yoshvim lefanav. And he has talmidim, 2,000 talmidim, and they're starving. Vayomer lenaro, sfos asir agdola. Take this large cauldron. Uvashel nazid livnei Nevi'im. Let's cook a lentil soup for the Bnei Nevi'im. In Pasuk, in Perek Vav, right? We're now in Perek Daled. We're going to discuss this famine, which was 7 years. And the Nevi'im, the Bnei Nevi'im are asking Elisha, we need food. So he tells his Nar, whether it's Gehazi or another Nar, to prepare a large cauldron for the Bnei Nevi'im. Pasuk Lamed Tes. Vayitzei echad el hasadeh laket orot. One of the Talmidim go to collect herbs. Vayimtza gefen sadeh. They found grapes. Vayilaket mimenu pakuot sadeh melovigdo. And he gathered them in his garment. And the pakuot are bitter. And not only that, they were poisonous. But vayavo vayfalach al ser nazid ki lo yado. But they didn't know that they were poisonous, and they put them in the cauldron of the lentil soup. Vayitzkul anashim lechol, and they started pouring some of the stew to the Nevi'im. Vayhi ke'achla nazid, when they started eating the soup, the Heimat Soaku, they cried out. Vayomru mavet basir ish Elohim. They said to Elisha, there's death in this. V'lo yachlu lechol, they couldn't eat further. So number one, they noticed that it was bitter, and they couldn't eat further. So they're crying out about the past, says the Malbim, because the few people that did eat, it damaged them. And they realized for the future, there's going to be nothing for them to eat. And they will die by famine. Pasuk Mem Aleph. Vayomer kechu kemach. Elisha tells them to take some flour. Vayashlech el asir. And they throw it into the cauldron. Vayomer tzak la'am vayochlu. Pour out to the people so they can eat. And he cleansed the soup of its bitterness and of the poison. And everybody could eat from it in the future as well. And what about the people who ate and ate poison? They could die from it. It was part of the nace that the poison should not damage those that ate it. Others say maybe because of the bitterness, they vomited it up and they never really took a lot of it in, and therefore they weren't damaged. The Malbim says, yes, there was a correction of the past, that the poison would not kill them. In Perek Beis, we learned that the water in Yericho was also bitter, and they poured salt in it, and the water became sweet and could be drunk. Same as here. And by throwing in the flour, so that in the future there's going to be food for them, the Malbin points out, Ein mider chaneshi ivra yesh ma'ayin rak yesh me'yesh. As much as possible, like we said before, Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to follow normal, natural causes, and not to create something out of nothing. But the flour, which is normally something that nourishes, that's why I start off with a little flour. The bracha flows from there. Next miracle. Pasuk Mem Beis. Ish bami bal shalisha. Bal shalisha has a place. Vayavel, and a person came. Vayavel ishalim lechem bikurim. He brought a gift for Elisha, bread. Esrim lechem sa'orim, 20 loaves of bread made out of barley. The Carmel bitziklono. there's still some like fresh kernels in their husks. Vayomer, Elisha says, Tein la'am vayochelu. This also we will use to feed the people that are in famine. And this is the Bnei Nevi'im, which we say there were 2,000, in Chazal saying, Ksubis Kuvav, Omer Aleph, that there were 2,000 students. So each loaf of bread was good for 100 people. You notice, I'm sure, or you don't notice, the New Testament also describes loaves of bread were increased. All of this follows the early prophets, Eliyahu and Elisha. Means this was the template of creating nisim, bracha and nes. Now, why does the pasuk call it bikurim? Bikurim are the first fruits that the farmers had to bring to Yerushalayim. So the Gemara in Ksubis, Kufei Amud Beis, quoting this pasuk, Ish ba mi bal shalisha, vayavei liish Elohim lechem bikurim. The Gemara asks, Elisha ochel bikurim ava? Elisha's not a Kohen. Valo Kohen haya. We see in Divrei Yomim that Elisha comes from Shevet Gad. There's some psukim there that it says V'Shafat, and we see in Pesachim that Shaphat was the father of Elisha. So what does this pasuk teach us? Whoever brings a gift to a Talmid Chacham, it's as if he brought bikurim to Yerushalayim. Now, Tosfos there points out that Rashi didn't have to ask that question. We know bikurim had to be eaten in the walls of Yerushalayim, and Elisha's in Shomron. But says the Seder Eliyahu Zuta, it's one of the Midrashim, Talmidei Chachamim kapor lehem liyisrael b'chol makom ashvaseim. Wherever Talmidei Chachamim are, they're like a little Beis Hamikdash. They provide kapora wherever they are. Because how can we say that Elisha's eating bikurim? Ein sham migdash, v'lo mizbeach, v'lo kohen gadol. Rather, what's there? Elisha v'tamidov, yoshvim lefonov. And therefore, from there we say that bringing gifts to a Talmid Chacham is like bringing bikurim to Yerushalayim.
Ernie, the Abarbanel offers an alternative explanation. He said because it was a famine, the crop was late in having grown, and so it had missed the bikurim. And in times of famine, even though it's the Kohanim who should have been enjoying the bikurim, because of the famine, they could wait. They couldn't wait, so the populace was able. Everybody else was able to eat from those bikurim.
Right, but bikurim, the halacha of bikurim, you have to eat it in Yerushalayim, and they were in Shomron.
Only because it was a famine. So there was that's what.
It's like pikuach nefesh.
Yeah, because it was a crisis.
Okay. Now there's only 20 loaves of bread. So vayomer mishar so ma'etein zet lifnei mea ish. I mean, how can we put one loaf in 400 people? So vayomer tein lam vayochelu ki cho amar Hashem achol v'oser. Hashem says that this will suffice, and one loaf was enough for 100 people. Vayitein lifneihem vayochlu vayoser kidvar Hashem, and it was given to them, and they ate it. Perek Hey. And there'll be another nace, because the flow here, after the taking of Eliyahu to Shemayim, is to show how Elisha accomplished double the nisim that Eliyahu accomplished. Perek Posuk Aleph. V'Naamon sar tzva melech Aram hayom. Naaman is the general under the king, the Aramean king. Ish gadol lifnei Adonav u'nesofanim. He is a famous and big man. Kivon natan Hashem tshua la'aram. He led them in battle over Melech Yisrael Achav. In fact, Rashi says he launched the arrow from the bow that killed Achav the Melech. As we know, Achav died in battle against Melech Aram. Va'ish haya gibor chayil mitzorah. He, though, had leprosy. This is the 10th nace. We're going to see that Elisha is going to cure Naaman of his leprosy. Why did Naaman have tsaras? So the Medrash Rabbah says, Al gaso saruach. He was very haughty. That's why he describes him, Ish Gadol. Because Rucho Gasa, he was arrogant. And one of the punishments of having a haughty spirit is tsaras. The Medrash Tanchuma says, Sheshava Me'eretz Yisrael Narak Tana. He took prisoner a young girl from Israel. So these were punishments. This tsaras is not a medical, just like our tsaras that we learn about in Parshas Mitzorah. This is not a medical disease that leprosy, that we call it leprosy. Leprosy is a disease which has bacteria, which can be cured with drugs that kill the bacteria. But tsaras came because of Lashon Hara. It was a spiritual illness, not a machla. And the Meforshim point out that this tsaras of Naaman was that kind of tsaras. It was not a medical tsaras through some kind of physical ailment. Now, we have a big question. The Ramban in Tazria Mitzorah says, "De lo shaykh tsaras begodim ubatim, ela be'eretz Yisrael uvi Yisrael." Not only could tsaras afflict a body, but there would be tsaras in clothing, and there would be tsaras in houses. Like we look at houses, they have mold or whatever. There was tsaras in the house. But the Ramban says that these afflictions only occurred in Eretz Yisrael and by Jews. This was not, the Ramban says clearly, Ein lahem mitziut b'teva, hakol rak davar ruchani. It's a spiritual ailment. Uba al eze chatoim she'asu Yisrael. And it came from some sins. So our question is, how did we have Naaman, who's not a Jew, get tsaras? Number two, Aram is Chutz La'aretz, it's not Eretz Yisrael. And we can't say that this tsaras of Naaman was a physical one, because we just brought various midrashim that it came in response to sins. Either Gasus Haruach. So one answer is, you notice I read in the Ramban, he says this only regarding Nige Batim and Nige Begodim, that the limitation that tsaras in garments or in homes is only Eretz Yisrael. That's that kind of tsaras. But he doesn't talk about tsaras of an Adam, that it cannot be in Goyim, it can't be outside of Eretz Yisrael. So it could be that you could have Nigei Adam in Chutz La'aretz by Goyim as well. as we see, Naaman had this tsaras.
Can I read an alternative explanation given by the Rif?
Please.
That God gave leprosy to Naaman, even though as a means of leading him to the Torah, because he was a pious man. So what did he do? He afflicted him with saras because he would ultimately find that he's advised to go see Elisha in Eretz Yisrael. And in Eretz Yisrael is where he was cured of his leprosy, as we'll see later on in the parak. So what he's saying is he created leprosy to bring him to Eretz Yisrael so that he would be blessed and accept the Torah.
Okay. That's an interesting shot. That it was given to him for his good, because it led to a good outcome for him.
Yes, that's the interpretation.
Okay. So let's see what happens here. Pasuk Beis. Aram yatsu gdudim. Out of Aram would come various battalions to go and raid Israel. They would do it even though there wasn't major war going on. Vayishbu me'eretz Yisrael narak tana. And on one of these occasions, they took prisoner a young girl. Vatihi lifnei eshes Naaman. She was given as a maidservant to the wife of Naaman. So we can see inklings, a little bit what Bernie just described. Like I'm seeing the whole story of Yosef being thrown into the pit with the Saramashkim, which then brings him to Paro. Look what happens here. This young girl is taken captive, brought into the house of Naaman, and the young girl speaks up. Vatomer el gvirta, achalei adoni lifnei hanavi asher b'Shomron. You know, Naaman should go and daven in front of the Navi who's in Shomron, az yesof oto mitzrato, who can heal him from his tsaras. By the way, the word yesof, like it says we had at the end of, right before Korach, the end of Parsha Shlach, that Miriam, ad hey osef Miriam, right? Bnei Israel did not move until Miriam was gathered up. But what it really means was until Miriam was healed. So here the word is used the same way. Az yesof oto mitzarato. He will be healed from his tsaras. This Nara says to the wife of Naaman, this is not a physical ailment. And all the doctors here in Aram are not going to be successful. Only davening to Hashem, this is a spiritual illness. And the Navi can help him. So the child is also involved in Kiddush Hashem. Even though she's enslaved, she doesn't forget Hashem. And even though she's given over to these people, she's still trying to be Makadesh Shem Shamayim. So the wife listens. Vayavo vayaged ladonav lemor. So the wife of Naaman goes and tells Naaman, Kazot the Kazot Ibra Nara. This is the story that the Nara said, that you can go to the Navi, Hashem Eretz Yisrael. The Malbim says that, you're the one who killed Achav, and there's anger because the current king, Yehoram, you killed his father. And that perhaps is why the Navi has caused you to have tsaras. So go to him and he'll resolve it. So, Vayomer Melech Aram Lechbo. The Melech Aram agrees, you should go to the Navi. And I will prepare the way. Vashlachas Sefer Melech Yisrael. I'm going to send a document to Melech Yisrael. Vayelech ve'kach b'yado eser kikrei kesef. Of course, he sends lots of gold and silver. Sheishes alafim zov. Eser chalifos godim, and nice garments. again, they were in this mindset that perhaps it was Melech Yehoram, the son of Achab, that had commanded the Navi Elisha to strike Naaman with this tsaras. That's how the Malbim learns. Pasuk Vav. Vayavei Sefer Melech Yisrael Lemor. So they bring the book to Yoram v'atak v'asefer zeh lecha. Hinei shalachti elecha staman avdi v'asafta mitzarato. Along with this book, I'm sending you my general Naaman, and I'm asking that he be healed from his tsaras. So, Pasuk Zayin vayikikro Melech Yisrael et hasefer vayikrab gadav. Melech Yisrael reads this and tears his clothing. Vayomer Elohim, Anila mitu lachyot. Do I have the power to heal and to kill? Kizeh sholech elai, that he's sending this to me. Lesof ish mitzarato. Ki ach naru ki mitaneu li. This is some excuse for him to invade me and to battle me. He does not feel that he can fulfill this request of Melech Aram. Now, this shows the evil of Yoram. He is not oblivious to the nisim that Elisha is performing. But yet he doesn't think that Elisha would be able to cure Naaman. He didn't have he didn't have emunah. The Radak says he was embarrassed to go to Elisha because he's still worshiping the Agolim. So to stand in front of the Navi Hashem while he's still worshiping for the Zohar, it's embarrassing for him. He was also wondering, why did the Melech Aram send something directly to him? Why didn't he send it directly to the Navi? And that's why he thought maybe it was just an excuse to get into a battle with him. However, Pasuk Ches, Vayikish Shmo Elisha Ish Elohim, Ki Kara Melech Yisrael es Bgadav. He hears what happens in the palace of Yoram. Vayishlach el HaMelech Lemor, Lama Karatem Bgadecha. Why are you upset? Yavonai Elai, let him come to me. V'yeda ki yesh Navi b'Yisrael, let him know that there is a prophet of Hashem amongst Israel. And for Kiddush Hashem, Elisha wanted to heal him. The Griz, Rav Yitzchak Zev Soloveitchik, who was the uncle of Rav Yoshe Ber, the son of Rav Chaim, who was Rav Lebrisk in Yerushalayim, he died in 1960. He brings the Gemara Gittin Nun Zayin. Naaman ger toishavaya. So we know what a ger tzedek is. A non-Jew converts to Yiddishkeit. He accepts all Tariq mitzvahs. Now, a ger toshav, says the Rambam, kol hamakabel zayin mitzvahs, you're a Noahide. If you accept the zayin mitzvahs, you're a ger toshav. And you're doing these zayin mitzvahs not because you think they're intelligent ways to live life. No, you're doing it because Hashem commanded it. And Elisha was thinking that he's going to know that there's a Navi b'Yisrael, and he will accept to become a Ger Toshav, that he will believe that all of this is commanded by Hashem. And the Malbim also says that the whole tachlis of Elisha trying to heal Naaman was L'Kiddush Hashem. Vayavona Aman Besusav, right? If you look at it, there's a ksiv Besuso, means with his one horse, but we read it Besusav, with his horses, plural. Uverichbon, his chariot. Vayamot Pesach Habayis Elisha, and he stands in front of Elisha's house. So he is still haughty with his Gasas Haruach. He's not coming off of his horse. He's not mashpil himself in front of the Navi. because of his haughtiness and pride. The Abarbanel learns that Naaman thought that if Elisha sees how great and powerful he is, it'll be even more incentive for Elisha to cure him. He didn't go into the house of Elisha because he's a Mitzorah. The Yerushalmi, Sanhedrin Yud Beis, explains this Kriyun Ksiv of Suso Susav, that he was prepared to leave all of his horses and all of his gold and all of his silver with the Navi. And that he was prepared to just come back with his one horse if he was cured. Others learned that just the opposite, that even though Naaman was a big general, he showed covet to Elisha and he did lower himself. And he didn't come with all of his horses and chariots, but rather just with one horse to show he was machnia to Elisha. So Elisha malach lemor. So Elisha didn't go himself. He sent a shaliach. He wants to show him that the Gzeir of the Navi is going to work. He tells him, "Haloch v'rachatz sheva pamim b'Yarden." Go and wash 7 times in the Yarden. V'yashov psarcha lecha utar, and you will be healed. Your skin will be healed. Now, normally water is not a good is the opposite. It's not good for skin disease. It itself comes through too much moisture. So again, this is nes mitoch nes. He's like putting salt in the bitter waters of Yericho, also nes mitoch nes. Now, Naaman gets upset, Yud Aleph. Vayikzof Naaman ve'elach. Naaman goes away in a huff. Hinei amarti elai yetzei atzo. I would think that the Navi would come out and greet me. Ve'amad ve'kara b'shem Hashem Navi will call in the name of God. Ve'hinif yado lamakom v'asafam, and he would wave his hand over me, and I would be cured of my mitzorah. And he's sending just a shaliach. The Ran, in the Drasha Saran, on this issue, says, Naaman evin ki Elisha yasa nes v'yispalel Hashem. He understood that Elisha is going to daven to God. So all of a sudden, Elisha commands him to go wash in the Yarden. What is that going to do? Number one, cold water, it doesn't cure tsaras. It does damage. And he said, listen, we have many great rivers in Syria, and he didn't believe any of this was going to work. And as we said, Elisha Dafka did it to show that it's going to be a nes b'toch meis. He wants to do it a little bit b'toch teva. Says the Drasha Saran, Ritzono shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'kayim min hago shel alom b'chol ma de'efshar. Like I said before, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants nature to go as always, because hateva yakar beinav. Natural functions in the universe are dear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he only wants to change it l'tzorach hachrachi. There's no other way. Says Naaman, Yud Beis, Halo, Tov, Amana, Uparpar, Narot, Damascus. There were 2 rivers in Damascus, Amana and Parpar. Those rivers are better, Mikol Mei Yisrael. Halo, Erchatz Bahem V'tar. I'll go wash in those rivers. Vayifen, and he turned Vayelech Bechema, and he went away angry. By the way, in Bereshis, when they mention Aram Naharayim, right? 2 rivers of Aram, that's Damascus. These are the 2 rivers.
There's an interesting interpretation on the word Yarden. So the shoresh of Yarden is Yarod, Yud Resh Daled. So the implied explanation is that Elisha was telling him, go down from your haughtiness and arrogance and humble yourself and you'll be cured.
So that's the play on words of Yarden.
Yeah.
Very good. Who says that? The Me'am Loaz brings it. Okay.
It's near them.
Who's?
Benny knew that I already heard you.
It was the Rif.
The Rif brings it, okay? Now, who gets smart? Naaman's servants. Vaikshu avadav vayidabru elav. Vayomru, avi davar gadol, hanavi diber elecha lo ta'aseh. What do you mean? The king sent you to Eretz Yisrael to this Navi to be cured. You're going to go against that? And the Navi advised you to do something very simple. The afki amar elecha rechatz tahar, go and wash and you'll be healed. He's not asking you to go through very difficult treatments. He's telling you to do something easy. Pasuk Yudalit. Vayeret, vayidbol bayarden sheva pamim kidvarish Elohim. He listened to his zavadim, he listened to Elisha. He went and was toivel in the Yarden 7 times. Vayashav sarok kibsarnar katon vayitar. And his skin came back like he was a young boy.
Ernie, I was just thinking how interestingly that his servants spoke to him by virtue of the fact that he kind of really reduced his arrogance. He listened to them. Typically, he would say, "How dare you? Why tell me what to do?" I mean, the fact it was an indication already that he was in a state of being contrite, less arrogant.
And perhaps that's part of his cure.
Yes.
He's undergoing a metamorphosis. That's
right.
why
Exactly.
it says vayitar. Some say nishtane ishi shelo. We see that his whole personality is changing. That he was a Baal Gaiva, and now he's machnia to the Navi. He's a believer in Hashem.
Right.
Vayashav el ish Elohim hu v'chol machaneu. So Naaman, with his whole entourage, goes back to Elisha Navi. Vayavo vayamad lefanav. He stands in front. Vayomer, Hinei na yadati, hi ein Elohim b'chol haaretz kim b'Yisrael. There's no other God except in Israel. Ve'ata kachna bracha meit avdecha. He is ma'amin in Hashem. He rejects avodah zarah from here, and he wants to give a gift to Elisha. He's makir barabim. Chazal say that this is a hoidah like Yisro, or like Rachav Azona, that they were makir koach Hashem and they became Jewish, or they became believers. Tet Zayin, Vayomer Chai Hashem Asher Amati Lefanav Mekach. Elisha refuses to take money. Vayivtzarbo lakachat. He keeps on after it. Vayimaein, but Elisha refers. A Navi doesn't take reward for his nevuah. That would be a bizarre and chilul Hashem. Rashi learns pshat that he thought that there might be avodah zarah stuff in his money, mixed because he was worshipped avodah zarah. Because remember, there were starving people. He could have accepted stuff to buy food, so he didn't want to do it because of avodah zarah. You don't get payment for nisim. Vayomer Naaman, v'lo yutan na'alav adecha masad semet fradim adama. He wants to give him at least the I don't have all of the psukim. I'm going to stop here. Okay, I'm going to stop here today and open it up for questions, because this leads to a nice conclusion of this perek. What's going to happen with the payment that Naaman wants to do? We'll see who ends up taking the payment, and that's a very notable event that will occur. But I think we moved we moved quite well today. We'll also probably do a couple of prakim next week too. Any other comments before questions, ha'aros? Other comments about what we learned tonight? Okay, so very good. Everybody have a good week.
Good week.